It's amazing sometimes how all the preparation of the world just doesn't seem prepared. It just doesn't seem prepared. And as is the case for me today, because last night we tested all of this beautiful studio equipment. I wish I could turn you the camera around and show you all the stuff that we have connected to be able to pull off this particular live version. But the truth is, in testing all the equipment and staying up late and making sure that everything was just so, all the camera colors perfect, all the angles and the shots perfect, and everything was good to go, what I failed to do was turn everything off when I went to bed.
Welcome to J Leaders Podcast. 5-minute videos, 5 days a week.
I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and the reality is I got up this morning and came back to the studio to turn on all the cameras and realized that 2 of them had completely dead batteries. One of the iPads that I use to monitor the actual stream health and make sure that the video is good, battery is dead. Phone is dead. And of course, all of these devices are making noises and talking to me, and the reality is the Boy Scout motto is always be prepared. And I thought I was prepared. I went to extra lengths to make sure that I was prepared, that I was so ready for today. But all of the things that I went above and beyond to accomplish, they got missed because I skipped a step. Now, as a leader, again, I'm sure I'm the only one. I know some of you watch this Leading Leaders podcast and you think, what a dolt. This guy's an idiot. All he does is stand up there and tell us about the mistakes he made, because I'm sure I'm the only one that makes that kind of mistake. I'm the only one that spends hours of preparation to let one tiny thing slip through the cracks. I'm sure I'm the only one that focuses on the big picture so much that the little picture gets overlooked. I'm sure I'm the only one that tries to do everything on their own, because mastery of all of the tasks that you'll eventually delegate, in my opinion, and I think in a lot of people's experience, is a great way to lead. See, it's really hard to hand off to somebody else what you've never done yourself. It's really hard to instruct them to do what you've never done. It's hard to have someone who operates a camera, unless you're paying high-end professionals, and explain to them what it means to get the colors right when you've never tried to get the colors right. It's really hard to critique someone on the editing output and say, well, why don't you make that camera zoom in more? Or why don't you make that camera follow them better? Or why don't you make that camera, if you've never operated the camera? And the same is true in so many other places. I'll give you a quick illustration. I think I was probably 23 or 24 when I got out of the Air Force. I'd have to actually look at a calendar. It would have been 24. I got out in February, turned 25 in November. Yeah, around 24 years old. And I got a job at a Mazzio's Pizza House. It's not anything elaborate, but Mazzio's was the place that had the long buffet for salads and the long buffets for pastas, and you can make your own spaghettis and order pizza from the kitchen, but there's also pizza on the buffet. And when I was hired, I was told by the hiring manager that I was being hired to become a manager because I just gotten out of the military. And he's like, you're the right age. We got all these high school students. You've got this military background. I think you'd be the perfect person to be a manager. And I was there for, 15 or 20 minutes. And as we kept walking back and forth to look at the various stations he was training me in, I kept seeing pasta on the floor. And it was because kids would run up and grab one noodle out of the little pot and leave a string of them on the floor. And I stopped and picked up all the pasta off the floor and put it in the trash and then went back to following him around. And he stopped me and he's like, see, that's exactly the kind of character that I'm looking for. Somebody who's willing to do even the dirty work in order to lead, to manage, because nobody wants a leader that won't do what they've been asked to do. And I thought, yeah, that's a good characteristic. I agree with that. And even now, 30 plus years later, I look back and I think, I still want leaders who are willing to go where they're asking me to go. People who've already been where they're challenging me to go, already done what they're challenging me to do. And yet the irony was, I was about 2 weeks into the job when I realized for 5 days I was being a busboy. I was literally picking up noodles off of the seats and climbing underneath them and scrubbing the carpets underneath where the kids had left a mess. And I was washing dishes, and they wouldn't even train me to cut pizza or run the cash register in the first two and a half weeks on the job. I was like, this is not management training. This is slave labor. You've got me at a server's salary. They're working me 15 to 20 hours a week, and I'm not making any money, and I'm not learning anything about management. I'm filling in the gaps in your time slot. That's really all I'm doing. And so I quit and went to IHOP. Yeah, I worked there for, I don't know, almost a year as a server. Made a lot more money than I did as a manager in training. But see, the reality is for a lot of people, all the stuff that it takes to set up the studio, you can hire 10 people to do it. I mean, there are pros out there who do. They hire a cameraman for each camera, and they hire someone to run the switcher and the mixer, and someone to add in the bits, the video clips and the still images and all the things that show up on the screen. And then there are other people who do just the lighting, and other people who do just the audio recording, and other people who do just the editing. And so you could have a team of 20 people doing this, or you could have a team of 5 or 6 people doing this. And I want to master it as the leader on my own first. So what that means along the way is you're probably going to see some days like today where it wasn't perfect. Yes, I have a 4-camera switcher and a 3-camera studio with lights and sound and isolated microphones and digital audio recordings and all of that. And right now about half of it is hooked up. Why? Because the batteries are dead and everything else. Why? Because I stayed up late trying to get it all just right and didn't think, A, to turn off the equipment, and B, to charge everything else. So the failure, well, it's all mine. I have to own it. I did try to go the extra mile, and I fell a couple of miles short of an extra mile. As a leader, I think there are some things that are equally important to the idea of saying, I'm going to figure all this out before I ask someone else to do it. And that is the integrity to say, when you screwed it up, own it. Don't try to take the credit for things you didn't do, unless you're willing to take the blame for the things that you did. And sometimes, honestly, sometimes, to keep peace in the house, keep peace in the organization, to keep moving forward, the hardest but most important thing a leader can do is take responsibility when it's not their fault. I didn't make the batteries go dead other than leaving the switches on. I didn't actually make the batteries go dead. The cameras did that on their own, right? No. But see how easy it is to shift the blame, to blame it on somebody else who didn't turn the cameras off. I mean, there were 3 other people in the studio. Anybody could have turned the cameras off, but ultimately it's my responsibility. Because if I wanted to use them the next day, I should have made sure they were off or charged. Got to take the responsibility. You don't get the credit without also taking the responsibility. So I'm trying Restream today. This is the first time I've ever used Restream, so I'm hoping that this is showing up on Facebook and Periscope and YouTube all at once. I did get a text message from my wife while trying to set up the studio that says, hey, it says you're live on Facebook. So I hope you can see and hear this okay. If you can, please just give me a little comment and say, yeah, that was sad, that was ridiculous, whatever. I appreciate your input. I appreciate just, I don't know, knowing that there's somebody back there, somebody out there watching, paying attention, that is giving the feedback that I've actually done something right. As I say that, I'm looking at the multi-camera monitor. I really wish you could see it. It's kind of cool, but it tells me that my hard drive is full, and so I've stopped recording now. And since I didn't hit the record button on that camera, counting on the recorder from the switch to the backup hard drive, now the only version of this is the live version. So there'll be no edited version released later for the website. It won't exist because I'm not recording anything anywhere. See, I'm having one of those days. Is it Monday? I think it's actually Friday, but it's acting like a Monday. I'm ready for a weekend. How about you? I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.